Welcome to the Untold Tales audio anthologies. Written by Taija Morgan and narrated by Melissa Del Toro Schaffner. Golddigger. By the time the funeral is in progress, Jennifer is composed and plans to stay that way. Caleb drops her off at curbside, but doesn't join her. Part of her wishes he would have, just to see their faces. From the funeral home's office, she listens to voices echoing off the pristine marble floor in the lobby. They close in, sharper, louder, the click of high heels reverberating. Jennifer takes a deep breath, holds it, schools her face. The mahogany door opens. "You've got to be kidding me! His whore? The nerve!" Jennifer doesn't turn her head as Barbara stalks into the room. She recognizes the woman's voice from about 1,000,000 overheard voicemail messages. "I know you're out with her, Max. You think I don't know what you're doing?" The spitting vitriol is no different in person. And frankly, Jennifer craves it the way she craves a cigarette between her lips right now. The low tremble of unbridled hurt in the woman's voice makes her seem out of control, weak. She bears her pain for everyone to see, like an injured deer, limping through the field with an arrow in its back. Jennifer always did like the part where Bambi's mom died the best. Even better, the woman doesn't seem to know Max has changed his will and cut Barbara out of it. Jennifer sits up straighter in the wingback chair and smooths out her black Valentino dress, which, by the way, was featured in Cosmo's article, How Not to Look Like a Slut at a Funeral. So she's feeling pretty confident in her choice. Retail $7,000. A modest cut, high neck, low leg, because ultimately, this is a business meeting. The dress had been a gift from Max, along with a Louboutin heels and a tasteful Gucci Dionysius bag with Swarovski crystal accents. Little did either of them know at the time that she'd be wearing the ensemble to his funeral. Barbara takes a seat to Jennifer's left and shoots a side-eyed glare over her shoulder. But if looks could kill, Barb's husband would have croaked decades ago. The grieving widow's uniform, faux veil, Yves Saint Laurent opium slingback pumps, a severe silk Chanel dress, all black. Plunging V-neck, though, because those suckers cost 10 times what Jennifer paid for her first car, and no one puts baby in a corner. Behind her, Max's 2 grown kids trail in, Sterling and Selena, the latter clutching a white lambskin heart-shaped Chanel bag with a gold chain strap. Retail $6,500. Matching sandals. A satin and tulle Simone Roca dress, very much this season. All white, almost bridal. An odd choice for the day of a funeral, but it still provokes a flicker of indignation in Jennifer at not having thought of this particular power move herself. Genius. Selena was the least favored of Maximilian's 2 brats. The way she slams that Chanel bag on the desk before sitting says it all, and more. A scowl puckers her lips. Sterling is wearing an Armani suit, simple lines, a casual, "Sure, I'm grieving, but I have to catch the next flight to Ibiza with the boys" vibe that Jennifer doesn't hate. Handsome, like his father. The lawyer strides in next, gray hair pulled back in a low bun, vapid and unmemorable. Max has specifically requested the reading of the will to occur right before the wake, a surefire way to spark an explosion of drama. Intentional, no doubt. He'd have loved this. The thought leaves her oddly empty. But she shakes it off. Jennifer's ready to look surprised at the announcement, planning an open-mouthed O shaping her coral lips, paired with raised, perfectly arched brows, a quivering hand to her chest, to really sell it. "What? It's all for me? Oh, my, I had no idea. I'm so overwhelmed." The lawyer adjusts her glasses and time stretches languidly in the air between them. A tense silence grips the space as the lawyer clears her throat and begins the reading of Max's will. Selena is the first to snap.
What the hell am I supposed to do with a house in Malibu? I told him I wanted a villa in Italy. Doesn't anyone care what I want?
The 25-year-old's shrill voice leaves the room's stained glass windows vibrating. Technically, Selena has a year on Jennifer. A point of irritation on the girl's part, but she has nothing in actual life experience and looks like a toddler playing dress-up in mommy's closet. "Selena, please," the lawyer intones. To the young man next to Selena, she says, "Sterling, your father left you his prized car collection." "Oh, great," the boy mumbles, thumbing his iPhone screen. "The upkeep on that alone will bankrupt me. Typical." The lawyer's French-tipped nail runs down the paper. "And the rest of Max's estate goes to..." Jennifer's breath catches as a future laden with yachts and summer houses sprawls out before her. His spouse, Barbara. The declaration hits Jennifer like a bucket of cold water over her head. She doesn't have to orchestrate the dropped jaw or the raised brows. "What?" She's on her feet in an instant, composure abandoned as her heart trips into a gallop. "Did you expect something else?" Barbara asks. A slow grin crawls across the woman's wrinkled lips. Jennifer's hands clench at her sides. "That's wrong. It's supposed to be... he..." Barbara flutters a silk handkerchief in front of her face and throws her head back, like she's in a period drama. "Will someone remove her, please? Honestly, no one has any consideration for my poor nerves." All eyes turn to Sterling. He glances up from his phone, shrugs, and stands, reaching for Jennifer's bicep. She jerks away.
You can't do this!
Her voice is too high now, the slap of the news still resounding.
Max and I, we were in love!
"You need to leave," the lawyer says. But she can't.
I have a right to say goodbye to him, as much as anyone."
Sterling's loose hand falls away. He looks to his mother, his sister, the lawyer. The lawyer stands. "The body is in the viewing room. You have 5 minutes." Okay, love may have been an overstatement. What Jennifer and Max shared was an investment. And really, what was love if it was not an investment? She'd done her part, and in the end, the fucker screwed her over. The house, the bank accounts, the investment properties, the 401k, they should have all been hers. Fair compensation for her considerable labor. In the viewing room, a handful of mourners are gathered to say their goodbyes, mostly standard fare old white guys, with the occasional Stepford wife. The undulating wave of black dresses and suits parts around Jennifer as she enters. The room smells sweet, a potent mixture of flowers, cologne, and a few swirling tumblers of bourbon in the mourner's hands. Lilies and roses are stacked high near the platform where Max's coffin rests. And are those... They are carnation wreaths. How unexpectedly pedestrian. The florist must have made a mistake, or perhaps the funeral director allowed some of the common rabble to send their condolences. He was a popular man, after all, respected and feared, if not loved. But he'd have hated those carnations, and so she hates them for him. Jennifer shoves past the other mourners and strides up to the coffin. Hot tears burn her eyes when she sees him. "You bastard! You goddamned bastard!" It isn't fair. Blinking hard, she glances around. Eyes flicker her way, pretending they aren't watching. A shed tear would sell this well, but she can't do it. Didn't wear the waterproof mascara today. A massive oversight. She turns her gaze back to Max. He looks more alive than the last time she'd been with him. A red dye mixed with the embalming fluid, replicating the effect of blood flowing through his veins. So realistic. She could reach out and touch his cheek, expecting it to still be warm. But he's so still. So impossibly still. That something in her guts revolts at the thought. He lounges in a handcrafted solid bronze coffin with velvet interior and gold-plated detailing. The Cadillac of burial options. $30,000 they were shoving in the ground right there. And for what? A pretty box for Max to rot in? Her stomach is a sunken pit as she takes him in. It's an uncommon choice, a 6-sided coffin over a standard rectangular casket. No doubt custom-made, but the tapered shape makes his shoulders seem broader, a touch statelier, and Jennifer wonders if he could have planned that somehow. If he has planned out every tiny detail of this day to play out exactly how he wants, even if he's not around to see it. He's wearing a single-breasted wool and mohair Prada suit, another $4,600. Salvatore Ferragamo plain-toe Oxfords in polished calfskin leather, clocking in at a mere $1,900. And was that? Yes, 18-karat gold Dolce & Gabbana cufflinks with inlaid rubies and a matching tie bar. An easy $6,000. Jennifer's breath catches. They couldn't possibly be burying him in the cufflinks. His wedding ring is still there, too, and on his left wrist, just the flash of something gold under his cuff. With a quick glance side to side, she snakes her hand into the casket and tugs at his sleeve. His favorite gold Rolex. Retail $130,000. The room spins. Behind her, Barbara's venomous voice says, "Time's up, you gold-digging whore." A set of strong arms drag her away from Max's body. Jennifer packs bolt cutters, but they don't end up needing them. Larry, the security guy, is an easy bribe. Jennifer's flashlight illuminates the rich green sod overlaying Max's fresh grave. Caleb carries the shovel and a backpack. This is it. Jennifer stamps out a cigarette as she stares up at a tall granite pillar marking Max's final resting place. A rose-hued stone sparkles with dew. She pulls her leather jacket tighter. "A watch can't truly be worth this violation, amore." Caleb scratches at the stubble along his sharp jaw, his brown eyes serious. She huffs in his direction. "Trust me, it is." "How much are we talking about, then?" Jennifer hesitates. She's not sure why. But they're in this together, so he might as well know. $130. "Dollars?" $1,000. Caleb stumbles backwards a step. "You really think they buried him with it? Surely they'd have removed it after the viewing." Jennifer doesn't know for certain, but something burns in her chest, and maybe it's hatred or rage or nerves. But whatever it is, she needs to exercise it and can't stop until she does. "Only one way to find out. Help me roll the sod back." Caleb drops the backpack and shovel next to the granite pillar. Together, they pull at the grass seam, rolling the unrooted earth back like a heavy blanket. The surrounding grass is still trampled from the crowd this afternoon, a soiled tissue crushed into the ground near the pillar. "You sure about this, amore?" Caleb wipes at his forehead, though the air is chilled. "Seems a bit morbid, no?" "He owes it to me." "What if the body is all, rotting and stinking?" "It won't be. He was just embalmed." "I just mean, does it have to be today? Couldn't we think on it a little while? If the watch isn't even there?" Jennifer doesn't answer him. This is the best shot they've got, the loosest the dirt will ever be, the best Max will ever smell. Jennifer grabs the shovel and holds it out to Caleb. Caleb raises his hands, shaking his head. "Oh, no, I cannot. My carpal tunnel." Jennifer frowns. Caleb steps forward, placing his hands on either side of her face and leaning in to kiss her forehead. "Don't be mad. I'll keep you company. Serenade you with the poetry I've been working on." Jennifer sighs. She sinks the shovel into the still soft earth and begins the slow, painstaking process of digging down to Max's dirt-clogged coffin. Hours later, Caleb's voice is hoarse with his recitations, and Jennifer is physically exhausted. The squelch of mud sucking at the shovel has worn her down. Dirt cakes beneath her broken nails, manicure ruined beyond repair. Her discarded jacket lay at the rim of the freshly dug grave high above her head, and severed worms litter the earthen walls of the hole, still wriggling. Above her, on the other side, a mountain of displaced earth threatens to spill back into the hole, a landslide waiting to happen that leaves her knees quaking with the risk. She flicks an ant off her arm, slaps another when its mandibles nip at her flesh, then hands the shovel back up to Caleb. She fiddles with the locking mechanism at the base of the coffin until she hears it release. But the solid bronze lid is so heavy, her arms so rubbery, she'll need extra leverage. Standing astride the lid of Max's coffin, Jennifer calls up to Caleb. "I need the pry bar." "See." Jennifer jumps as it lands with a clang against the metal lid beneath her. Lifting her filthy hand to her eyes, she can barely make out Caleb's shadowed form above her in the darkness, looming against the moon's dull light behind him. She shakes the stringy hair out of her face and grabs the bar, positioning it into the seam of the coffin lid and leaning all her weight into the awkward angle. There's an audible pop as the rubber gasket sealing the coffin releases. With a loud groan, the coffin opens. Jennifer is breathing hard, panting both from the workout and from anticipation. She lifts the heavy lid, stepping over it in the too tight space, and registering just how deep she is, how dark this pit is, how close the walls are on either side of her, and can she breathe? Why can't she breathe? Don't panic. Flickering on her flashlight, she directs the beam onto Max's dead face. He looks like he's sleeping, except there's no drool at the corner of his mouth, and his chest doesn't rise or fall. For a moment, though, she thinks she sees it, a breath pushing up his ribcage. "Don't be stupid," she tells herself. It's only gases. His body is slowly eating itself, microbes and gut flora waging their last doomed battle, impeded by the embalming fluids, but not halted completely. She'd interned with a mortician for a few years. She knew what to expect. That's how she knew Larry would let anyone do anything to a corpse for a bottle of whiskey and a Cuban cigar. But still, she finds herself reaching down, fingers hovering a breath away from his cheek. Her own chest constricts as her fingertips glance over his skin, smearing the makeup there with grave dirt. She jerks away, and her stomach clenches. Cold to the touch, but he'd never been a warm person. "What do you see?" Caleb calls from a world away. Jennifer blinks, shakes her head, swallows. "A dead man? Hand me the bag." The backpack lands squarely on Max's face. Jennifer cringes, but leaves it there. It isn't that she feels bad, but part of her wonders if he might open his eyes. Can't bear to consider how the cloudy blue orbs would look in death. Dull and flat, void of his vibrance, his mischievous spark. Just the thought leaves her throat tight. She reaches first for Max's wrists, gratified beyond measure to see the glint of gold cufflinks, and yes, there it is, the watch, still in place. All of this is suddenly worth it. Worth everything. Her grin lifts her voice as she tells Caleb, "It's here! It's still here!" Like she can't quite believe it herself. Caleb whoops above her, reinvigorated. She slips the antiquated coin cufflinks free and palms them, leaving dirt on the pristine white fabric of his dress shirt. He'd have hated that. The skin beneath his cuffs is a sickly marbled hue. No makeup there to cover up what death really looks like. Jennifer unzips a pocket of the bag and slides the cufflinks in. Easy. The matching tie bar goes next. This close to him, she can smell the metallic tang of the bronze coffin, the wet earth of the grave, and beneath, just a phantom edge of rot. It's her imagination, filling in the scent of rot where she subconsciously expects to find it, although he's still freshly embalmed. Even imagined, she can't stop smelling it. She catches a glimpse of something white and squirming in Max's exposed ear, and she startles back up with a gasp. But the flashlight reveals nothing. A trick of the light, or lack of it. She swallows down the bile at the back of her throat, trying not to think about maggots in Max's orifices, or the sensation of maggots wriggling under her own skin. Inhaling deeply, she rolls up the cuff on Max's left wrist. Jennifer's fingertips dance across the icy cold metal of the Rolex. A chill flickers up her spine. $130,000. Tossed away in a grave like it was nothing. As if the dead had any use for it. It was Max's favorite, but it wasn't his most expensive watch. He had a few in the $500,000 range. But this one, he'd won it, cheating at a poker game. Gave him a certain extra thrill to wear, since he took it away from someone else. This was his walking around watch, something his family clearly wouldn't miss any more than they missed him. She slides it off and adds it to the bag. It feels anticlimactic, despite the exhilaration sweeping through her veins now. The thrill isn't enough. No, she's not finished here. Not yet. The flashlight glints off Max's wedding ring. Why they'd bury him with this, too, she can't fathom. It's like they don't want any part of him now. Not the way she does. His family had never really known him, only a curated version of him. A version crafted to perform for elaborate dinner parties and packed boardrooms. She wonders if she really knew him either, but then thinks, yes, I knew you. I did. There were quiet moments between them that were too intimate to be faked, where even she was real and the masks were down. And that had been genuine, that intimacy. Only maybe it was just real for her. After all, he'd managed to fuck her one last time, with the will. Jennifer runs her finger over the ring, unsure of its value. Solid gold, to be sure. Inlaid with diamonds. She tugs on the ring, but it doesn't budge. He had never taken it off, not even during all the times he'd slid that finger inside of her right up to the knuckle. She'd figured it was a subtle fuck you to his wife, burying that warm metal in a hot 24-year-old. Tugging on his finger now, she realizes the damn thing is just fused in place after so many years with the raging bitch. Jennifer pulls as hard as she can. A popping sound makes her stomach churn, but she still can't free it. She sits back on her haunches, crouched over his lower body like she had been so many times before. The last time she'd been this close to him, his heart had given out. A thought struck her. Caleb, we packed those bolt cutters, right? Amore? She pulls the bag toward her and rummages through it, not looking at Max's revealed face. Never mind. Pulling the item out, Jennifer exhales. The humiliation from earlier in the day still stings, vivid and hot. She turns the bolt cutters over in her hand. You bastard! You did this to yourself! Caleb's head peeks over the edge and the beam of his flashlight hits her, startling bright. She flinches, suddenly seeing herself being seen like this, hunched over the dead body of her lover, smeared in graveyard dirt. She squints against the glare, covering her eyes, shielding her gaze from meeting his. When he lowers the beam, she sees his frown. Bolt cutters? She lifts Max's heavy hand from where it rests over his chest and positions it. The ring, it's stuck. His eyes widen. Just leave it, Caleb pleads, sounding distressed as if her plan wasn't what was going to get them both set up with a new life in the city, help him get his poetry published. What? She scowls. Don't be ridiculous. We have what we came for. Jennifer shakes her head, dirt-laden hair slapping her cheeks. His family didn't even want this ring. Buried it. As if they could throw it away, throw him away. This ring should have been hers. Her eyes fall on Max's now uncovered face. No, it's mine. He's mine. She touches something inside herself. Then a well of grief she hadn't expected, beneath the indignant rage. Fingers skimming the surface of that water, so cold, so deep. Her throat tightens as if she feels his hand on her skin, brushing her neck, squeezing. I'm yours. she'd told him once in a whisper. She swallows hard, wills it away. It's not as if she loved him for real. This was just business. She shifts her center of gravity for the leverage, digging into the velvet cushioning on either side of him with her knees, bruises still aching there from the last time she'd knelt in front of him. Holding tightly to Max's cold, stiff finger, Jennifer sinks the bolt cutters down. She doesn't look away from his face, in case. God help her, he winces. But he doesn't. The bone crunches. The finger comes partially away, but not entirely. After all that digging, her grip is weak. She's forced to saw at it with the bolt cutters, pulling at the dangling flesh and muscle until the finger is finally free and his hand flops to his side. Bile burns the back of her throat again, and when she stops, she's shaking. With trembling hands, she slips off the ring of the dismembered finger and drops it into her palm. It's beautiful, she realizes. She's never noticed that before. Not a designer brand she recognizes, but still, beautiful. Settling the finger onto the velvet next to his head, she scoops up her flashlight and examines the gold band. Inscribed on the inside are the words, Amor Eternus, eternal love. Barbara must have chosen it, knowing Max's fondness for Latin. The thought sours Jennifer. Had it been Max's choice, Jennifer is sure he'd used his favorite phrase, Amore et mele et fele es fecundissimus, which he'd always wryly translated as, love is rich with honey and venom. Far more fitting for their marriage. Jennifer balances herself on one hand on his broad chest, wonders briefly about the trocar incision that would be hidden beneath his shirt just inches below her hand, where the mortician suctioned fluid out of his organs during the embalming process, the way plastic surgeons liposuction fat. Her lips are tingling, numb, as she calls up to Caleb. I got it! Caleb groans. I can't do this any longer, amore. I'm done. But she can't leave. It's not enough. I think we could take the suit, too. The tie, the shoes, we could take it all. Jennifer, he says, don't you hear yourself? She tugs at Max's red Tom Ford tie, remembering the smooth silk between the pads of her thumbs, the last time she'd tied it for him, the way he'd smirked at her as she'd straightened it. His stiff head lolls slightly to the side as the tie slips free. The smell of rot wafts up again. Beneath the collar of his dress shirt, she can see the crude, thick stitches at his carotid, where the embalming fluid was pumped into him. She'd seen it 1,000 times, the process, but all she can think now is how Max had extreme phobia of needles, how he even had to look away when she got a flu shot and nearly vomited in the parking lot after. And didn't anyone care about that? It's not as though he felt it. He was dead. He didn't feel anything. He couldn't have been scared. Jennifer shakes her head, shoves the tie and the ring into the backpack, and throws it up to Caleb. She hears him catch it, the sigh of relief that follows, like a little kid stuck in a waiting room, finally able to leave. As they should. Leave, that is. She should leave. Jennifer can't stop looking at the body, though. Distantly, she thinks about the coffin itself. Solid bronze, and surely they could make some money off that. But no, it's far too heavy. A logistical nightmare. Max's titanium hip. Could she get anything for that? No, those had serial numbers. Too hard to fence. If only she hadn't called the police when he'd croaked beneath her. Surely some of those organs could have had value left in them. Stupid. Stupid to have trusted him, taken him at his word. What kind of idiot believes a mark when they tell you they've left you everything in their will? She knew better. Well, now she'd never make that mistake again. Get paid up front, sweetheart. Max's boyish grin flashes through her mind, the glint of his gold tooth. Gold tooth. Jennifer stills. She squats again, reaches, thumb outlining the shape of Max's lips, pulling them back into a snarl. There it is, a gold canine. She thinks of his teeth sinking into the flesh of her shoulder, just enough to hurt, to mark, to push her over the edge. She bites her lip. How much would that tooth actually be worth? Compared to the watch, nothing. A pittance. But all of that, she'd sell, pawn, fence, whatever she could manage. Then what is she left with? She needs more. She needs everything. Caleb's voice carries down again, but she can't make out his words through the blood rushing in her head. He sounds angry. She thinks he's saying something about the watch and a plane ticket and forgiveness. She clears her throat. I'm almost done. Above her, grass rustles. Maybe he's leaving. But she can't leave. She won't. All she wants is a part of him, to keep, to hang on to. Something that was just his, no ties to his family, his wife, his business. Something that can be hers. Her fingertips brush over his lips. Jaw in her hands, she tries to open his mouth but can't. Wired closed. For the wake. She tugs his bottom lip down and sees it now. 2 wires anchored into his dry gums, top and bottom, like the bars of a cage. She knows what it feels like to be caged. The hole around her seems small and tight as she thinks about it. All she can smell is the heavy, musty scent of raw earth and that hint of rot. So overpowering she feels sick with it. She pulls her hand back but leans her head closer to Max's. Red ants march across the velvet near her mouth, mandibles snapping. I hate you, she tells him, whispers it against his ear, wonders if he'll hear her somehow and know she's lying. They'd always lied to each other. The bolt cutters are bulky and too big, scraping against the enamel of his white teeth as she clips the 2 wires. Max's jaw falls open. She tries to get the tooth now, snapping and pulling, but she can't get a grip on it with bolt cutters. She flips them upside down in her hand and smashes the butt of the tool into his teeth. I hate you! She spits, over and over, her chest as tight as the hole around her, slamming the bolt cutters into his mouth again and again, barely noticing the tears and sweat dripping onto his expensive suit. I hate you! A crack. And there it is. A gap in his crooked smile, where more than 1 tooth is missing now and part of his upper jaw is caved in. With a shuddering breath, her fingers dig around in his spongy mouth, desperately trying to capture the gold tooth at the back of his throat before it slips into his gullet. She pinches the tooth between her fingers and pulls it out, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand, sniffling. I got it! She laughs then, and it bubbles up in her throat as she stands, holding the gold tooth up to her eyes. It gleams in the soft moonlight. It feels like deliverance. I got it, Caleb! It's mine! The crack of the shovel against her skull snaps her head back so hard that she hears a crunch, feels it like fire whipping through her whole body along the cable of her spine. She's lying on top of Max, staring up at the sky, before she even notices Caleb standing high above her, shovel in his hands. Carpal tunnel? Not with that swing. She tries to move but can't. That's when the fear hits. Suddenly, like a dam breaking, she can't move. I'm sorry, amore, he's saying, a distant noise in her ringing ears. I don't have a choice, can't you see? The money won't split 2 ways. I need this. You see that I need this more, don't you? I didn't want it to be this way, but how can I trust you? His words churn in her mind, crashing waves that break up into nothing. Beneath the swell of noise, she hears something else, a whisper near her ear, a cold breath that chills her, scalp to toes. Max's voice. Mine. She tries to scream, but she can't move. Short gasps rack her chest, and tears leak out of the corners of her eyes, dripping into her hair and onto Max beneath her. The gold tooth is cupped in her open palm. The first shovelful of dirt lands on her from above, as the scent of rot rises once more, and a cold hand with 1 missing finger tightens around her wrist. Thank you for listening. We love our listeners, fans, patrons, and supporters. We'd like to hear from you and let us know what you think. The best way to do that is to subscribe on our website, untold-tales.com. We want to make sure that we are creating stories and an experience that you're enjoying. So subscribe on our website. That'll put you on our email list. Again, thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.